so we hear you want to direct this movie. And I said, I'm going to direct this film. Then I was scared because I was like, oh man, And those are just things that I came up with, on a natural order of a desperation to wanting to make a good film.
A 23-year-old nobody walked into one of the most powerful film studios in Hollywood, sat across from a man who had greenlit blockbusters, and told him, no. A movie that preached peace, ignited violence in 12 states on its very first night. And a real gang member delivered a death threat so specific, so chilling, that it forced an entire production to relocate. This is Boyz and the Hood, the film that broke Hollywood wide open. And today we're going 15 facts deep into everything they never put in the documentary. The stuff that happened on set, behind closed doors, and on streets that didn't care about cameras. Stay locked in, because Fact 9 alone will make your jaw drop. Released July 12, 1991, Boyz and the Hood wasn't supposed to exist. Not the way it did. Not directed by who directed it. Not starring who it starred. This film survived studio interference, near-death accidents, real gang threats, and opening night chaos that reads like a war report. John Singleton didn't just make a movie. He went to war for one. And these 15 facts prove exactly what that cost him, and what it gave the world. Let's get into it. Fact 1. Columbia Pictures offered Singleton $100,000 to walk away from his own script, before he was a director, before the Oscars, before any of it. John Singleton was just a 22-year-old kid with a script and a dream that made studio executives nervous. The story actually starts in 1986. Singleton was applying to USC's prestigious film school, and one of the application questions asked him to describe 3 film ideas. He wrote down something called Summer of '84, a coming-of-age story set in South-Central Los Angeles, pulled straight from his own life, his own friends, his own streets. That idea quietly evolved over the next 4 years into what would become Boyz and the Hood. By the time he graduated in 1990, the script was done. Columbia Pictures wanted it immediately. They saw the potential, a raw, urgent story in the vein of Spike Lee's Do the Right Thing, but set deep inside gang territory. The script was electric. The problem? The guy who wrote it had 0 credits, 0 experience, and 0 proof he could actually direct a feature film. So the studio made him an offer, $100,000. Cash. Walk away. Hand the script to a real director, a professional, and let them handle it. Singleton said no. I wasn't going to have somebody from Idaho or Encino direct this movie, he said. And that wasn't arrogance. That was survival instinct. He knew what happened when outsiders told stories about communities they'd never lived in. He'd seen it his whole life. This one was going to be different. Studio chief Frank Price sat down with him. By the end of that meeting, Price reportedly compared Singleton's raw confidence to a young Steven Spielberg. That 22-year-old kid got the job, and the rest of Hollywood has been catching up ever since. Fact 2. Ice Cube was written into the script after a chance meeting at a talk show. Here's where fate steps in, and it's almost too cinematic to be real. John Singleton was working as an intern at the Arsenio Hall show, a film student just trying to get his foot in the door, doing whatever grunt work came his way. One afternoon, Ice Cube walked into the building trying to get NWA booked on the show. Security stopped him, didn't recognize him, didn't care who he was. Singleton stepped up. Do you know who this is? This is Ice Cube. Just like that, a connection was made. Months later, they ran into each other again, this time at a Public Enemy concert. They stood in the parking lot long after the crowd had gone, 2 kids from South Central talking until the lot emptied out. Singleton told Cube about the script he was writing. Cube talked about his music, 2 people dreaming out loud on the same corner. By the time Singleton finished the script, he knew exactly one thing. The character of Doughboy had Ice Cube's name on it. Not because Cube was an actor, he wasn't, but because Cube was Doughboy. The rage, the loyalty, the trapped brilliance of a man the system had already written off. But Ice Cube didn't believe it. He assumed Singleton would eventually hire a trained actor, someone like Todd Bridges. His first audition was, by all accounts, rough. Singleton sent him home and told him to read the script again. Really read it. Cube came back, and something had shifted. Damn, he reportedly said, they're actually going to make a movie about how we grew up. Second audition, pure magic. Singleton watched a star being born in real time. Here's the detail that still kills me. The studio didn't even know Ice Cube was in NWA when they approved the casting. Didn't matter. He was Doughboy. Period. Fact 3. Cuba Gooding Jr. and Morris Chestnut were cast because they showed up first. There was no long audition process, no callbacks, no chemistry reads over 3 rounds with network executives watching from a glass room. Cuba Gooding Jr. and Morris Chestnut walked in first, and that was that. Both were unknowns. Chestnut had never appeared in a film. Gooding was grinding, hungry, one break away. Singleton saw the hunger in both of them. He didn't need to see anyone else. Lawrence Fishburne came through a completely different path. Singleton had met him years earlier on the set of Pee-wee's Playhouse, where Singleton was working as a production assistant and security guard. Fishburne was hanging around. Singleton handed him a script, asked what he thought. 5 years later, Fishburne became Furious Styles, the moral backbone of the entire film. A man only 7 years older than Cuba Gooding Jr., who was playing his son. Angela Bassett had been trying to break into films for 3 years. Singleton gave her a shot she'd been waiting for. Nia Long grew up in the exact neighborhood the film depicted. She said it mattered to her that the film felt real, because she knew firsthand what it was like to hear gunshots at night. Every single person in that cast brought something true, because Singleton refused to accept anything less. Fact 4. Real gang members, Bloods and Crips, served as on-set consultants. Singleton didn't want Hollywood's version of South Central. He wanted South Central itself, so he hired it. Actual Bloods and Crips were brought on as consultants. They reviewed wardrobe, adjusted dialogue, corrected the way characters moved and spoke. Every slang term, every gesture, every piece of clothing had to pass through people who actually lived that life. On set, tensions between rival gang members used as extras ran dangerously high. One wrong color, one misunderstood word, one look that crossed a line. Everyone felt it, but Singleton pushed forward. He needed truth on screen, even if chaos was crouching right behind the cameras. The crew adapted fast. They had to, because in South Central, as Singleton knew better than anyone, you don't get second chances. Fact 5. Singleton never warned actors when gunshots would fire. Their fear was real. Think about the last time something startled you, really startled you. Your body reacted before your brain even processed the sound. That's what Singleton wanted on screen, and he built a system to get it. He never, not once, warned his actors when gunshots would go off during a scene. They had no idea when the blasts were coming. Every flinch, every scream, every moment of pure terror captured on camera was completely genuine. The actors weren't performing fear, they were experiencing it. Cuba Gooding Jr. didn't know when the next shot would crack through the air. Morris Chestnut didn't know when the Mac 11 was about to go off. That unpredictability worked its way into the DNA of the film, made the violence feel immediate, uncontrolled, real. Most first-time directors chase safety. Singleton chased truth, and he understood something fundamental. Audiences can feel the difference between real fear and performed fear. In a film about gun violence in South Central Los Angeles, he couldn't afford to let a single frame feel staged, so he kept them in the dark, and he caught lightning in a bottle every single time. Fact 6. Singleton wanted all of NWA in the film. Ice Cube's beef with them ended it. The original vision was bold. Doughboy's crew wouldn't be random actors. They'd be NWA, Eazy-E, Dr. Dre, DJ Yella, MC Ren, Arabian Prince, the most dangerous rap group in America, playing gang members on screen. It made complete sense. They were authentic. They had the look, the attitude, the credibility, and Ice Cube already knew every one of them. Except Ice Cube had left NWA in December 1989 over a financial dispute. He wasn't being paid fairly, and when he walked, the split turned ugly fast. Diss tracks started flying. NWA went after him on record. He fired back. By the time Boyz and the Hood was in production, there was no universe where all of them stood on the same set together. Singleton had to pivot. He cast other actors, but he got one quiet, petty moment of revenge. There's a scene in the film where a guy wearing an Eazy-E t-shirt gets beaten up. Subtle, but it's there. And now you'll never unsee it. Fact 7. Stand By Me, directly inspired. two of the film's most iconic scenes. This one surprises people every time. Singleton was deeply influenced by Rob Reiner's 1986 coming-of-age film Stand By Me. Four boys in rural Oregon walking to find a dead body. On the surface, nothing could seem further from Boys in the Hood. White kids in small-town America versus black kids in south-central Los Angeles. But Singleton saw past the surface. He saw the bones, friendship, mortality, growing up too fast, the moment childhood ends without warning. He borrowed directly from Stand By Me in two key places. The early scene where young Trey and his friends walk through the neighborhood to view a dead body. That's Stand By Me. The slow, contemplative fade-out on Doughboy after his final monologue. That emotional punctuation mark. That's Stand By Me too. Singleton's insight was profound. Great coming-of-age stories share the same skeleton, no matter what zip code they're set in. He took Reiner's template and rebuilt it block by block for his world. And it worked so well that most audiences never noticed the blueprint underneath. Fact 8. The film got a 20-minute standing ovation at Cannes before most Americans had even heard of it. May 1991, Cannes Film Festival, the most prestigious cinema event on Earth. Ice Cube was nervous. The film had French subtitles. He genuinely worried European audiences wouldn't be able to connect with it. The slang, the culture, the hyper-specific rhythms of South Central life. "This is about to be torture," he reportedly said backstage. Then the lights went down. When the credits rolled, the audience rose. They didn't stop clapping for 20 minutes. 20 minutes. Quincy Jones was in the crowd. Eddie Murphy, Gregory Hines, all of them on their feet. Ice Cube stood there in disbelief. If they love it here, he thought, wait until this plays in the States. Roger Ebert called it one of the best American films of recent years, a film of what he described as enormous cultural importance. The kid from South Central had just conquered Europe. America was next. Fact 9. Opening night left 2 dead and over 30 wounded across 12 states. July 12, 1991. Boyz in the Hood opens in 829 theaters across America. And chaos erupts. Violence breaks out coast to coast. 2 people killed, over 30 wounded. 12 states affected in a single night. In a Chicago suburb, a 23-year-old security guard was shot to death leaving a drive-in theater. In Universal City, 5 people were shot inside an 18-theater complex. All future screenings canceled immediately. In Sacramento, a 19-year-old woman was shot 6 times. Minneapolis, Detroit, Brooklyn. Theater chains installed metal detectors overnight. Some pulled the film from their schedules entirely. The film's final frame read, "Increase the peace." But rival gangs had shown up to the same theaters at the same times, and the streets had followed them inside. Singleton was devastated. He was forced to stand at a press conference and defend the film he'd poured his entire life into. "I didn't create the conditions under which people shoot each other," he said. Columbia Pictures refused to pull the film and offered to fund additional security instead. The violence overshadowed everything, but Singleton refused to apologize for telling the truth. Fact 10. An OG gangster approached Singleton on opening night and couldn't say a word. On opening night, Singleton rented a limousine and drove through Los Angeles with his USC friends and several cast members. They stopped at theaters across the city to gauge how real audiences were reacting. Not critics, not industry people, real people. Eventually, they pulled up to the Baldwin Hills Crenshaw Plaza, his neighborhood, his theater, the one he'd gone to as a kid. Singleton climbed out wearing a hat that read South Central LA and walked inside to thank the audience. The energy was electric. Then a woman approached him with her boyfriend. Singleton looked at the man and immediately knew. He was an OG, a gangster, someone who'd clearly done time. Hard eyes, lived-in face. But right now, that man's eyes were red and watery. He stood in front of Singleton and couldn't speak, couldn't form a single word. The film had shown him his own life on screen, his pain, his neighborhood, his choices, and it had broken something open in him. Singleton said later that moment meant more to him than any box office number, more than any review, more than any award. That was the whole point of making the film. He'd always known it. Now he had proof. Fact 11. Singleton. became the youngest and first black director ever nominated for an Oscar. When awards season arrived, John Singleton made history twice in the same night. 2 Academy Award nominations, Best Director and Best Original Screenplay. He was 24 years old, the youngest person in the history of the Oscars ever nominated for Best Director, and the first African-American director ever nominated in that category. Both records, at the same time, for his first film. The movie made $57.5 million on a budget of just $6.5 million, a financial success by any measure. Critics and audiences had already embraced it, and in 2002, the Library of Congress added Boyz n the Hood to the National Film Registry, declaring it culturally, historically, and aesthetically significant. The same film that caused riots on opening night. The same film that studios tried to take away from a 22-year-old nobody, now preserved permanently as an American classic. Singleton didn't win the Oscar, but he didn't need to. The nomination alone cracked open a door that had been sealed shut in Hollywood, and every black filmmaker who walked through it afterward knows exactly who opened it. Fact 12. Morris Chestnut nearly had his legs run over by a car during a scene he wasn't warned about. Remember Fact 5? Singleton's policy of never warning actors when gunshots would fire? That policy almost cost Morris Chestnut his legs. The scene. Ferris fires a Mac 11 into the air. Chestnut, playing Ricky, had no idea the shots were coming. When they fired, pure instinct took over. He panicked, bolted, started running toward Trey's car just as the scene required. But the fear was too real. He slipped, he went down, he hit the ground, and at that exact moment, Doughboy's Chevy Impala rolled past him. His legs were inches from the tires. The car passed. Somehow, impossibly, it missed him. Everyone on set froze. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. It could have been a career-ending injury. It could have been worse. Singleton kept the take, used it in the final film, because that was exactly what Boyz n the Hood was always about, the razor-thin line between life and what comes after, and how fast it disappears. Fact 13. The dialogue had to be completely dubbed because real gunshots kept ruining audio. Here's one most people never think about. The sounds of South Central refused to cooperate with the film schedule. Real gunshots in the neighborhood bled into audio recordings, LAPD helicopters, a constant suffocating presence over South Central skies, kept sweeping through takes. The sounds of real life kept crashing through the wall of fiction. Almost the entire film's dialogue had to be re-recorded in post-production through ADR, automated dialogue replacement. Every line, redelivered in a studio, synced back to the image. What makes this extraordinary is how seamless it feels on screen. The performances never lost their rawness despite being technically reconstructed. Singleton and his cast managed to preserve the emotional truth of every scene even during the clinical, sterile process of studio dubbing. The neighborhood wouldn't stay quiet, so Singleton made the neighborhood part of the film, and then rebuilt the rest on his own terms. Fact 14. Ice Cube had never acted before, and Singleton had to teach him to cry on camera. Ice Cube was a rapper, a lyricist, a man who had built a career on projecting fearlessness and fury. He was not, by any traditional measure, an actor, and yet Singleton saw exactly what he needed in him. Because Cube wasn't performing Doughboy, he was channeling him. The challenge came in the film's most emotionally exposed moments. Cube had mastered armor. Vulnerability on camera was a different territory entirely. Singleton worked with him privately, pushed him into the emotional spaces the role demanded, and guided him through breaking down those walls. The result is Doughboy's final monologue, one of the most quietly devastating scenes in 1990s American cinema. A man sitting at the edge of his own fate, saying the truest things he'll ever say, knowing on some level he won't be alive much longer to say anything else. Cube delivered it perfectly. First-time actor, one-take territory, and none of it would have happened if Singleton hadn't stepped up for him in that hallway at the Arsenio Hall show years before. Fact 15. A Blood member warned the producer that Ice Cube could be shot for portraying their gang negatively, and Singleton wanted to film there anyway, because this one has everything. There's a pivotal scene in the film where Doughboy and his crew kill rival gang members at a burger stand. Doughboy is portrayed as a Crip. The victims are implied to be Bloods. The location Singleton originally chose to shoot that scene? Directly across the street from known Blood territory, a neighborhood called the Jungle. Word got out, as it always does. A real Blood member tracked down producer Steve Nicolaides on set and delivered a message with cold, calm precision. A 14-year-old looking to earn his stripes was going to shoot Ice Cube. The Blood member made clear he wasn't responsible for what happened if someone decided to body Ice Cube for portraying their gang in a negative light. The threat wasn't vague, it was specific. It was real. Singleton wanted to shoot there anyway. Didn't flinch, didn't negotiate. Nicolaides overruled him. The location was moved. The scene was reshot somewhere with more room for the stunt work it required. Ice Cube never knew how close he came. A marked man, not for anything he'd done, but for a role he was playing. In South Central, the line between the movie and the street was never a line at all. And for Ice Cube, that danger didn't disappear when the cameras stopped rolling. Outro. A 23-year-old turned down $100,000, stood his ground in a boardroom, and changed cinema forever. Shot on the streets he grew up on, cast with people who lived the truth. Threatened by the world it was trying to document. Boyz n the Hood didn't just break rules, it broke Hollywood wide open and proved once and for all that stories from the hood don't just deserve to be told, they deserve the biggest stage in the world. Which fact hit hardest for you? Drop it in the comments right now. Was it the opening night violence, the car that almost hit Chestnut, or the death threat that Ice Cube never even knew about? Hit like, smash subscribe, and don't go anywhere, because next we're going deep on another film that changed everything. You're not going to want to miss it. Increase the peace, and never forget where it started.